The UAE's new Bitcoin announcement absolutely changes everything for Bitcoin and the geopolitical arms race that's going on today. Before I reveal what the UAE announced today, literally hours ago, I just want to set the stage and remind you guys that only 2 weeks ago, a multi-billion-dollar investment firm in the UAE came out and signed a new strategic partnership where they would agree to begin mining Bitcoin using renewable energy, I should say, in the country. And I want to also remind you about the green text in this little article here that's actually showing us that out of all of the countries around the world, the UAE has somewhere around a 27 to a 31% adoption of Bitcoin in the country, which is one of the highest adoptions of the world, which I believe makes this new announcement all the more bigger. Okay, yes, we're going to be talking about why the UAE has invested over $2 billion into Bitcoin mining. A lot of people forget that. We on this channel have talked a lot about this chart right here. As you can see, the UAE in the pink has made one of the biggest investments into Bitcoin mining in the entire world. And now they've just upped the ante a little bit because this is what dropped today. The UAE is now exempting all Bitcoin and crypto transactions from taxes. They have wiped taxes on absolutely everything in the country. Let's have a look at what's happening. So this is a new value added tax, okay? And the long and the short of it is that absolutely everything is being exempted from taxes in the UAE, which is going to make them an even bigger hotspot for Bitcoin adoption than they already are. And I kind of think that this is just a trend, okay? On this channel, we've talked a lot about the, multi-hundred billion dollar bank, Standard Chartered, the $700 billion bank, and their bullish Bitcoin predictions this year. But who knows about the, UAE or the Middle East in connection with Standard Chartered? I found this today in preparation for today's video. Standard Chartered launches Bitcoin self-custody services in the UAE. Again, and look at the date of this. Only September 12th, 2024. So this was literally 3 weeks ago. Today, they come out and back it up with this. The UAE is absolutely scrapping taxes on all Bitcoin transactions under all circumstances. And then again, only 2 weeks ago, we had this announcement. A multi-billion dollar firm in the UAE signing a strategic partnership to monetize flared gas to power AI, blockchain, and Bitcoin data centers. Let's dive down this one a little bit more. So the multi-billion dollar company is called Hodler Investments, a Dubai-based firm with a portfolio in energy, AI, and digital asset mining. Pretty interesting. Together, they will launch something called Next Gen, a project aimed at monetizing wasted energy like flare gas to power data centers in the UAE, KSA, and Egypt. So this isn't just a Middle Eastern story. This is a little bit of a global story. Now, I think this is where things are going to get even more interesting when we start looking at the global ramifications of what I think is happening in the UAE. Before we get to those global ramifications, I want to maybe just have a look at this article here. So the UAE is all set to become the world's new capital of crypto. I found this a pretty attention-grabbing article, and I had to have a look at it. Again, it's pretty new. It's only a couple of months old in 2024, but it says here, the latest figures on the UAE market revealed that $35 billion of crypto transactions had been received into the Emirates over a 12-month period. Massive. A large chunk, that's 67% of a large chunk of that money, came from institutional investments valued at more than $1 million. So the big boys are getting into Bitcoin in the UAE. $35 billion of trading volume in the past 12 months, 67% of that coming from transactions bigger than $1 million. Are the Saudis mining Bitcoin? Are the Saudis buying Bitcoin? I mean, that data is interesting. Show me data of any country. I know in Nigeria, it's not like that. It's very different. Nigeria accounts for something like 80% of the Bitcoin transactions under $1,000. That's right. You heard me correctly. It's a lot, isn't it? It's because Nigeria has something like 30 to 40% Bitcoin adoption in the country, and they have a population of 220 million. Saudi Arabia looks to be quite the different. It looks as if the big purses, so to say, are, actually getting into Bitcoin and buying. I mean, $1 million transactions is massive. But we can see across the UAE, there's now close to 2,000 organizations vying for crypto relevancy. 70% of them are crypto natives. So you got 2,000 businesses in the UAE. That's massive. That's not the figure I'm interested in. Research suggests that year on year, the number of daily crypto traders has risen by 166%. I mean, that's pretty interesting. It's estimated that between 27% and 31% of UAE residents have invested into digital assets. Among this active pool of crypto investors, nearly three quarters, 72%, are thought to have invested into Bitcoin. So that's good. Yes, it's great to have, 27 to 31% of the country invested into crypto in one way, shape, or form. But the fact that 72% of those people are invested into Bitcoin, that's big. That's the kicker. That's what I think is very, very interesting. Okay. Sorry, I was just reading the comments. Now I am going to circle back to the comments in a moment, but I first want to, have a look at this idea of how much capital is in the UAE, because they are a very rich country. Okay. And I want to show you why I think we're beginning to see these dominoes fall now, especially considering we are going to be having one of the biggest conferences in the world go down in the MENA region, which is obviously close to the UAE, in a pretty short order. And we have talked a lot about this image here with Mr. David Bailey. But before I get into talking about any of that, I wanted, of course, give a massive shout out to today's show sponsor, who's Rhino Bitcoin. Again, Rhino is all around the world. They are the all-in-one Bitcoin super application. Okay, you can buy Bitcoin on Rhino, you can sell Bitcoin on Rhino, you can even use the Lightning Network on Rhino, and you can even connect to Casa for multi-signature security on Rhino. Okay, if you're traveling like me, you can even get yourself some really cool US dollar debit cards. Okay, which is obviously makes traveling so much easier. Now, obviously, you can't spend Bitcoin in every country, but what you can do is you can put your Bitcoin in a US dollar debit card and you can actually spend your Bitcoin, which is super cool. Okay. Rhino makes all of this possible. And in the very, very near future, you're even going to be able to do some really cool things with Rhino, like borrow against your Bitcoin. That's obviously a massive concern a lot of people have. They say, hey, I have my Bitcoin. I want to buy a home, but I don't want to liquidate my Bitcoin. Rhino potentially is going to be making that a possibility, or they're going to be giving you a solution to that problem in the not too distant future, allowing you to borrow against your Bitcoin. Okay. So as you can see, they've got a really slick user interface, and I always encourage you guys to check out what Rhino is doing today. You can see we have their link in the live chat of the description, and also going to be down below. So definitely check out what Rhino is doing. Now, speaking of massive things happening in the Bitcoin space, let's not forget, we have the MENA conference coming just around the corner, where the Bitcoin conference, David Bailey's The Bitcoin Conference, is partnering up to host what is going to be one of the biggest Bitcoin conferences in this region. Okay, this is only 64 days away now. Okay, so as you can see, the Bitcoin MENA conference even has its own Twitter account. So this is serious. This is going to be big. Okay, the Bitcoin conference is massive in Amsterdam now. It's the biggest Bitcoin conference in Europe. They're the biggest Bitcoin conference in America, the Bitcoin conference. Now they're going to be heading on over to the UAE, or I should say more correctly, the MENA region, MENA, and it's going to be absolutely huge. The Middle East is getting into Bitcoin in a really big way. A lot of people are simply not paying attention to it. Okay, the UAE now accounts for 4% of the global Bitcoin mining activity, and that's highlighted best by this chart right here that we've talked about ad nauseum here on the channel. Okay, we can see in the pink here, the UAE has one of the biggest global Bitcoin mining operations in the world. This is tracking the 4 countries with state-sponsored Bitcoin mining. So these are governments who are openly investing into Bitcoin mining. And we can see in the pink, the UAE has a massive investment. Oman, big investment. They've got $1 billion Bitcoin investment. We all know El Salvador's plowed about $1 billion into Bitcoin mining. We also have my favorite little country on this chart. This is in the red. So this is Bhutan. And we all know that Bhutan right now is the 4th biggest Bitcoin holder in the world. And that is because they've been mining Bitcoin for a long time. Okay. We can see this is their little state-sponsored Bitcoin mining operation. So the UAE is, yes, they're a leader. Yes, they're doing things that other countries haven't done. Okay. But again, they're not alone. They are trying to get ahead of most people. And I think it's only a matter of time before we see Bitcoin in their enormous sovereign wealth fund. Have a look at this chart right here. This is looking at the 10 biggest sovereign wealth funds. And where do you see Saudi Arabia on this? I think this is interesting. Saudi Arabia, the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, has $579 billion worth of assets. It's absolutely massive. It's huge. Okay. We can see the only pension funds bigger is the Norwegian pension fund and the Chinese Investment Corporation. Okay, we can also see some other big ones. You got the Hong Kong. You also have, let me try to zoom in here. We have Singapore on the list. They're a very interesting country. And then, of course, Saudi Arabia down there at, what have they got? They've got 360 billion. And then we have the Investment Corporation of Dubai, the UAE. So again, they've got two of the biggest sovereign wealth funds from the same country. The UAE has two. They have number 3 on this list, and they have number 10 at the very bottom. Collectively, pulling in nearly $900 billion worth of money in their sovereign wealth funds. I think that's big. I think that's massive, guys. This is clearly a signal going on here. I really do think that a lot of us in America, we're sleeping on what's happening in the Middle East. We're getting distracted by Sleepy Joe and Orange Man and all of these Kamala debates, okay? And I think we could just be fumbling the ball in America by not paying attention to what is going on in the Middle East. With all that said, thank you so much to the 760 of you guys tuning in. If you enjoyed it, we would appreciate a smashing of the like button. That does help get this content in front of the eyeballs of more people. Let us know where you're listening from. We have Elaine on the YouTube chat, but she's also over in the Rumble chat. Shout out to Elaine, one of our favorites here on the channel. That's hilarious. We want to know how many of you guys are on Rumble. And with all that said, guys,